Got a,
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Nav Singh. I'm a senior consultant with Global Business Culture, and we are doing this series on short videos on different country cultures. And the topic of the discussion today is Japan. And I'm really glad to have here our CEO in GBC, Keith Warburton, who has extensive experience of living in Japan, not only as a colleague, but also as a local manager. So I think he has years and years of experience that we can use. So I'm going to just dive straight into it, Keith, and just ask you a few questions around Japan. So the first question, obviously, is the most obvious one is why does understanding the Japanese business culture matter so much for international companies, especially today?
Thanks now. Well, I mean, I think the obvious answer is, well, Japan's a massively important global economy. Japanese companies have their tentacles across the world. Lots of people internationally are employed by Japanese companies. But I think the other answer would be, why do you need cultural awareness when you're working with Japan? It's just because the Japanese and Japanese culture is complex. It's completely different to what we have in the West. The mindset, the Confucian influence behind that mindset is almost like a different planet. And without some guidance, it is very difficult to navigate your way around it.
Very good. And just on that, I think one of the most common question we get asked by our clients is around, how do I communicate with my Japanese team or my Japanese counterparts? Can you share some examples? And
Yeah. I think in short, it's a very big question, but short answer to that is I would answer it in two ways. The first thing that I would say is when you're working with Japanese colleagues, you're likely to be working with them in English.
hmm,
And English levels in Japan are very patchy. You get a thin layer of very good English speakers, but it drops away very quickly. So at a basic language level, the Japanese are very often struggling to communicate with you effectively. But let's bear in mind their English is a lot better than your Japanese, so let's cut them some slack there. But the other thing I'd say, which is a bit deeper, is that what the Japanese will always tell you about Japanese communication is you've got to read the room. It's almost more important what is not said than what is said. It's the silences, the body language, the feeling in the room. That's all very important. But of course, as non-Japanese, that's very difficult to read. And very often, if you look at silence, for example, which is very often a common feature of Japanese meetings, we just get embarrassed there and we talk. But for the Japanese, silence could mean a whole bunch of things. It could mean confusion. I don't know what you said. It could mean I'm thinking about this deeply. It could mean I disagree with you, but I'm not going to say I disagree with you because I don't want to spoil the harmony of the meeting. So trying to read those unspoken rules is important, but I will admit it's difficult, and we help people to do that.
Fascinating. And I think that silence in the West usually means lack of interest, incompetence, and so on.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally different idea. And the just related to that, the other thing that we get asked quite a lot is on around hierarchy. How does hierarchy work in Japan? Because it's quite different, and how does that play in how decisions are done?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it that Japan is amongst the most hierarchical business cultures in the world. That is not a good thing or a bad thing. Hierarchy is just what it is. And if you consider that the Japanese language itself is hierarchical, then you can ask a kind of existential question of how could the Japanese possibly work outside a hierarchy? It's very difficult for them to do that at a basic level. But one of the big misunderstandings that I think is made in the West is that when you say Japan is one of the most hierarchical cultures in the world, people immediately jump to the assumption that that must mean that the decisions are made at the top of the organization. And what we need to do is to get those very top level relationships to push the decisions through. Decisions in Japanese organizations are made in the middle through lengthy consensual processes. And once that consensus has been reached about a topic, then that agreement is pushed to the top for ratification and pushed back down for implementation. But to bypass the middle is a major mistake when you're working with Japanese companies. Those people are critically important for you.
Wow. Yeah. And I think it's so different from other hierarchical cultures where you probably go to the top and it wouldn't
Exactly,
work,
exactly.
tells you, it doesn't work the same for all other hierarchical cultures. Keith, can you give us some common examples, some friction points, some stories maybe to share, kind of
Um,
how you see
I
it play
think,
around?
yeah, I think, there are obviously very many friction points and areas of confusion, but I think one of the ones that comes up most consistently is around what is perceived in the West as the Japanese obsession with detail. So Western clients, when we're working with them, will say, "What I don't understand is, Keith, I get asked for this information from Japan, and it's the amount of detail I want is ridiculous. It's infinitely more than they could ever need." And I say, "Well, so what do you do?" And so, "Well, we send them 50%, and that's more than enough." So what happens then? Well, they ask us for the other 50%. What do you do? Well, I'll give them another 25%. They couldn't possibly need any more, and they will not give up until they've got all the information that they've requested. And that irritates people, but it's a critical issue because that detail is what the decisions are based on. And if you don't give them that level of detail they're asking for, it really slows down what is already a slow decision making process. So it might be a friction, it might be an irritant, but you just got to live with it.
Yeah, I think the famous saying that Germans find it difficult to work also with Japanese because it's so much more detail oriented
Yeah,
even than the Germans.
yeah.
Very good. And Keith, just before we go, can I ask you to give one practical advice for our listeners, something that they can apply when they work with their Japanese counterparts?
Yeah, I think what I would say is never ever underestimate the risk aversion of Japan. They are ultimately risk averse. They will not move until they have looked at every issue from every angle. And you might find that slow, you might find it cumbersome, but you're very unlikely to change it. Slow decision making from a Japanese perspective is good decision making. Quick decision making is risky decision making. And the story I always like to give of this is of a senior executive, Japanese executive working in the UK, who asked me the question, how can I get my British senior leadership team to make their decisions more slowly? Because from him, he just saw the speed of decisions as a real risk for the business. That's a major difference in psychology that you can never underestimate.
Well, great. And it tells you how important cross-cultural awareness and competence is in global teams if you really want to succeed. So hopefully our audience found it useful. Keith, thank you very much. I think we'll continue these conversations, and I'm sure Japan is a massive topic. So thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye for now.
Thanks very much.